Sell things that maybe because you don't know about.
I mean, we have all the year got to this on our name of the day, all of it. So
That's the problem.
that's.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, well, that's bad.
What it does like that.
They just said, you get out of the back. We'll get ours tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. 21. I'm done here. We're gonna call the meeting to order. It's 1:02 now. I have a board meeting tonight. All right, welcome everyone. Calling it to order. Should we go around and do the introduction? So I'm Beth Dudley from Evans Library in Huntsville.
Kevin Wilson, RSA.
Anthony Dita, say.
And if all of you out there talk really loud, the meeting can hopefully be able to pick you up.
Oh, God. Hi, Joelle Thompson, Library Director here at Galesburg Public Library.
Thank you.
Penny Queer, RSA,
Jenny Severe, Peoria Public Library.
Alyssa Williams Morton,
Jenny Jackson, Marquette Heights.
Ron Smith, Illinois Prairie.
Cindy O'Neill, Eureka Public Library Director.
Campbell, RSA.
Jamie Sterling, Assistant Director here at Galesburg, and I did want to mention, Kate Coffee in the here for the first time, and we had no tape of food. So I sprayed to so that's terrible. Give me Catalog Supervisor here at Galesburg.
Christy Castillo, Valley District Library.
Rebecca Seaborn, Farmington Area Public Library.
Richard Young, Brown County Public Library.
Jim Woodson, Brown County Public Library.
Yesenia Lambert, Henderson County Public Library. Amy Harris, Alpha Park Public Library. Gina Burke, Fond du Lac District Library.
Nick Nolan, Fond du Lac District Library.
Laura Hughes, Dunlap Public Library District.
RSA.
Tony RSA.
Free Urban Director, Cambridge.
Kathleen Hillsborough, Quincy. Teresa Good, Warren County Public Library.
Lisa Shemansky, RSA.
Roberts, RSA. Jennifer Choate, RSA.
Community Partridge Public Library.
Zach Montgomery, Alpha Park.
Jamie Emmett, John Marshall Public Library. Jamie Beal, John Marshall Public Library.
Becker Browning, 2 Public Library.
Lauren Peck, Gal.
Courtney Young, Avon Public Library.
Terry Brandt, Glenville Higher.
Thank you.
All right, if everybody has had a chance to review the agenda, is there any changes that anyone would like to suggest?
I move to approve the agenda.
Alyssa moves. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who seconded?
Richard.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. If you could review the minutes, April 8th, 2024, for our last users group meeting. If there's any corrections or additions.
I move we approve the minutes.
Any motion? Second, Jenny? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Which Jenny?
All right, we're done. Committee notes, any questions or important discussions about the committee notes that were in your packet? Just,
I do have a comment on this. The RSA Day Committee will continue on as a committee. All the other committees are moving to email groups as your kind of primary source conversation. We're going to talk about that later. That doesn't mean we can't have committee meetings. That doesn't mean we can't have Zoom or in-person meetings. It just means that the committees themselves, the primary source of conversation will not be through the email group. So that's where.
board of directors.
Oh, that's me. The board of directors had what is possibly one of our final meetings, and we reviewed the list of libraries who we had not received signed agreements from, and RSA staff has that well in hand of communicating with those who we still need to figure out if they're staying or going. And then we spent a lot of time discussing use of the building in East Peoria and how that might change once we're independent. And that is my report.
Thank you very much. Say new board election update.
So we have a committee. We've got John Fisher and Mary Ann. Let's see who's actually here in the room, who are currently building a slate of candidates. We have 19 volunteers that I know. Well, there might be, but the committee is currently reaching out to see if there's anybody else who might be willing to run, especially in areas where we only have like one candidate. If we're electing a full new board, so it's 12 positions. So if you get an email, that $1 serve on the board. And that makes it a little easier to serve on the board, even though meetings will be in person. So as far as the timeline goes on that, volunteering was through the 30th of April. We'll have a slate finalized on the 24th of May. We run the elections the 3rd to the 14th. Then we'll put out an announcement and the new board will take over basic management of RSA, telling me what to do on July.
No, I can't hear you. You feel like you're cutting in and out.
Zoom people say,
Yes.
much closer. Because that's what's going on. So. Zoom people. Hello, Zoom people. Do I sound better on Zoom now?
People of Zoom.
The people of Zoom. Okay, great. All right, let's talk about the RSA Independence Project. It's apparently the only thing we ever talk about anymore, at least that's what it feels like to us. I did want to talk about the eras of RSA because it turns out that for a while I've been trying to put into words kind of how I see how RSA has run over the years and how things kind of from a membership standpoint have run. RSA started in the mid 1980s and up to 1999 was a not-for-profit. Fun fact, our current tax-free number is the same one we had back in the 1980s. Because the state of Illinois was like, we know you, when we incorporated again in 2011. In 1999, RSA merged into the newly created Alliance Library System. Alliance Library System formed around the members of RSA. So the Resource Sharing Alliance kind of sort of turned into Alliance Library System. And then RSA merged into Alliance and was basically just run as an enterprise fund within Alliance. That's when I joined. I joined in 2005. That early period was very big on founders. All of the directors in RSA were the people who also built RSA, came up with the rules, knew how everything worked, knew how the system worked, and were super, super involved. When I started in 2005, we had a very strong core of founder directors still in RSA. And so when we did our system migration in 2007, we went from 75 automated libraries to a goal of having every RSA library automated. We currently have 3 libraries left that aren't automated. So I think we did pretty well on that goal. So that 1999 to 2011 time period was kind of a period of expansion and a lot of mentoring because, again, we had that very strong core directors who had been around forever and knew exactly how everything worked. And for those of you that go, why isn't this written down? It wasn't written down because everybody knew the rules back in the day. And for years now, we've been trying to catch up with that and write down things as people have moved on. 2011, that's when Rails formed. And with the formation of Rails, and at the time in 2010, no one actually knew if that was going to work, RSA and other automation consortia, the other automation groups, all went independent again. And so RSA went back to being a not-for-profit because that's where we started in the first place. And at that point in time, we were losing a lot of the directors that had been around for a long, long time. The system worked fairly well. It barely went down. We weren't tweaking or changing a lot. It just worked really well. And with the change of leadership and lots of new directors and libraries, we kind of became the cable company. People are like, oh, we have RSA, we check books in and out, it does what we need, have a nice day. And we lost that involvement that we used to get from the directors who actually built RSA. Kind of understandable, right? Because, you know, new director comes in, they're not intimately familiar with how the system works or the organization or any of that stuff, but what they've got works just fine. You know, that never, I think it was just, there was not a great reason to be involved. So that's our third era. The last era is the one, well, hopefully it's not the last era, but the next era is the one we're starting now on the 1st of July, when we convert to an Illinois intergovernmental instrumentality. In other words, a unit of government, because Illinois needs more units of government. I think we all agree. Soon I will be able to honestly say that I am from the government and I'm here to help. So in the new era, what we are trying to do, and I think you all hopefully are seeing it and will be seeing it as we move forward, is kind of trying to renew, reinvigorate, regrow, get the involvement going again. And basically just assume that we're not only have we just changed our governance and we're going to be hiring staff and doing all these things to make RSA kind of a completely new and independent organization, but we need to get all of you far more involved again. Because that's how we keep a strong organization moving forward. That's how we know how to serve you all the best. So that's kind of what we're trying to do with this. I think you're going to hear later when we talk about all the things we've done to the support site and the documentation indexes and some small little parameters parties and things like that we're going to be doing. We are full speed ahead on that renew, reinvigorate, and regrow piece. Any questions about that?
Lexi said you need a plaque. That's a bit more.
I was in the military for 20 years. That was kind of the way we thought about things too. Like, it's good. They're just going to change it in a week anyway. Just a quick update on the III. These numbers are current as of this morning. We had one more library, Galva Schools, return their IGA. Just that came in the mail this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
So as of this morning, we have 110 signed IGAs out of the 143 we started with, members. 76 of the 96 publics have returned an IGA. We have talked to each and every public library. We have a pretty good track on where all publics are. This week and next week, there are a lot of board meetings, and probably a good majority of that 20 that remains will be signed this week. We got signed IGAs from 29 of the 42 schools. We have had 3 schools give us notice that they are withdrawing. Actually, one withdrew last year and didn't bother to tell us. They stopped using the system in October. But we have 3 schools for sure we know aren't going to be coming over. There'll probably be 1 or 2 additional, if not more than that. Because the price increases for schools are really making them kind of reconsider in some times. Especially those that kind of use the system to check in and check out and don't do any IOLs or anything else with the system. And they're like, maybe yes, maybe no. And what we tell them, of course, is there are 4 million items you can get through the system to fulfill the holes. Some schools make great use of that, others not so much. And again, the full list is always on the Independence page of the new support website. You can just click on that link that's on that Independence page, and it will give you a list of everybody who has signed an IGA. Questions about where we're at with that? Okay. All right, so this last bit here, we were talking about this first milestone of converting our governance. We have the 72 we need. We are converting our governance on the 1st of July. So we're in this last phase now of talking to libraries, potentially still going out and visiting a couple of boards if we need to, or going out to schools and talking to administrators who may or may not have any idea who we are. So that's what we're doing this last quarter. Then for you guys, what are the next steps for you? This is the kind of painful piece because you had to sign a piece of paper and send it back to us. Oh, great. What's the question in chat?
The library somehow forget to approve the withdraw, they change their minds and rejoin it.
Yes, they can. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So things you all will be seeing. Everybody in RSA is a full member of RSA as of the 1st of July. No more basic online, no more union listing. Everybody is a member of RSA. You have access to everything in the system, assuming you want to use it, because there are a lot of things that maybe small libraries, which makes no sense, or are trained to use it. So like, for example, item group editor. We're working up an item group editor training for later this year. We're not just going to turn it on for you, because if we just turn it on for you and you go in there and play around, you could modify your entire collection with 1 click of a mouse, and that would be good. So some things you need to be trained to use, but everybody has access to everything. If you are currently a basic or union listing library, you will see additional modules in workflows probably in late June. You can ignore them for now, but we are going to turn everything on for everybody. And as mentioned, we're working on item group editor, Blue Cloud Analytics training, which I have to do these days. Blue Cloud Cert, which is an online cert product. They tell us that the receipt printer stuff is going to work correctly very soon. So we're going to start rolling that out, which means you can access the system from anywhere, not just in your library. So if you go out to the local grocery store and do signups, you can use that to do it there. You have to have an individual login to do that, but we will happily set you up with one. So that stuff's all coming later this year. RSA CAT online bill pay, we're going to be setting that up for everybody in your RSA CAT profile, your main catalog. Maybe you don't know this, but the RSA CAT mobile app, everybody has mobile online pay in that mobile app. Patrons know about it. Half of our payments, online payments, come through the mobile app, but that's because we only have like 23 or 24 libraries that wanted online payment in their full RSA CAT page. But if half of the payments are coming from other libraries in other mobile app, we should turn it on for everybody. So we'll be doing that. I'll talk about this one a little bit later, but we've got new carousels for your RSA CAT front pages to do a little bit of a refresh. Users group is going away. Users group is sort of being replaced by the Directors Advisory Committee. Directors Advisory Committee is the only subcommittee on the board next year, and it is basically a director's direct voice to the board. So if we have anything that we need to talk about that's controversial, or you have complaints, or you've got ideas, or we want to run a policy that may or may not be perfectly aligning, we'll run that through Directors Advisory Committee before it hits the board. So you all are invited as guests to that, and 5 of you will be invited to be 5 directors will be invited to be sitting members on that advisory committee. RSA board meetings are going to shift from quarterly to 8 to 10 a year. Those will be in person. We have the meeting owl. All of them will be online because we will be an Open Meetings Act organization. So we have to put them online. So I'm not going to say they'll be exciting, but we will have 8 to 10 of them a year. And system cleanup and refresh projects abound. Talk about a couple of those later. As to the non-member questions, so RSA is reforming as an intergovernmental instrumentality, which basically means that units of government, i.e. you libraries, have gotten together and formed an agency to serve you. If you have not signed the intergovernmental agreement, we cannot serve you, right? So if you don't sign, the few libraries that are left that haven't signed, on the 1st of July, we will take you out of the firewall, so you won't be able to access the system. We will turn off your RSA CAT page so that your collection will not be available on the internet. But that's it. We're not going to take your patrons out. We're not going to take items out of the system because we expect at least one library, probably a school, in mid-August is going to call us in a panic and go, how do we check books in? Or more accurately, they will call Rails and ask Rails, what am I supposed to do with the items coming out of the blue bins? The software to check them in doesn't work anymore. And then they'll get directed to us. And then we'll say, well, that's because you didn't sign the IGA. And they'll go, we have no idea what you're talking about. This is what we're dealing with right now. So if anybody did not sign the IGA and then finds out later that, oh, no, we really wanted to sign that IGA, just sign the thing. Everything will be in the system until September, October. If we don't hear from them by then they're not going to be coming back. We'll burn off a copy of their catalog and then we'll delete them out of the system. But there's no penalty if somebody needs to come back in. We're trying not to be. Next year. So this does not affect you guys as much, but you do need to know that what we're doing next year at the board level is hiring staff and everything that it takes to hire staff, benefits, pay packages, policies, retirement benefits, what's that? Job descriptions, personnel manuals, just a little bit of work. To get all that stuff done. We hope to have that all done by the end of February so that we can offer jobs out in March, which gives us basically a quarter in case we need to go out and try and hire someone new. Buffer time if we don't get it all done in time. This will not really concern you guys as much, other than we might be putting an email out on one of the email groups, probably the directors group, that says, hey, can I have your admin assistant description? Can I have your technical services person description? We're just looking for ideas to rebuild on. So next year will be even busier than this year, but you guys don't have to be involved. So lucky you. The other thing we're trying to do is make it crystal clear the fact that RSA and Rails are 2 completely different organizations. Many of you in this room know that. Some of you probably don't. I will tell you that since 2011, every job interview I've done, the first question I ask is, what is the difference between RSA and Rails? What does Rails do and what does RSA do? Anthony is the only person since 2011 to answer the question correctly, and that's because he really studied our website. All the information was there on the website on purpose, but he was the only person that actually answered the question completely correct. So, yes, we are trying to make sure everybody knows that RSA and Rails are two different things. You may have noticed that our signature blocks have changed. Rails also has new signature blocks. When they said, hey, we're doing new signature blocks, and they showed a picture of it, I was like, oh, that's not gonna work. Because there was a nice Rails logo below our names, and I was like, no, we can't have that. So that signature block on screen there, that's what you'll see on the bottoms of our emails. It takes a lot of space, but boy, it's clear who we are. So we're hoping that will help. And again, the RSA only email groups we'll talk about here kind of are the same thing as the Rails list, but they're for RSA libraries only. Laura has a question.
So your email signature block has a lot of letters on it and information, and it's very helpful. It does say railslibraries.org.
That is correct. Our email addresses to be railslibraries.org because we are Rails employees. And Rails is an Open Meetings Act FOIA-able company. So anything that goes through, anything that RSA staff do until the 1st of July, 2025 is FOIA-able. And it has to, we can't change any of our IT infrastructure that we use on a daily basis because it all has to go through Rails IT in case of FOIA stuff. So that is the only place on that entire directory where it does say Rails, but it does still say Rails. And I will tell you that many corporations, when we do a contract with them, they just put Rails as the contract name because they see it in our email block. And I'm like, no. Did you not see where it said Resource Sharing Alliance in very large letters? No, they don't. But no, we cannot, we have to use that email. So we will, on the 1st of July or shortly thereafter, we will convert over to librariesofrsa.org stuff.
2025.
2025, yes, thank you. Not considering. And will be FOIA-able as RSA. So we'll have to copy our. Stop talking.
Well, and along with that too, we were talking about the logo changes now, but it's gonna change again with the new board. So they're, eventually they're gonna be working on a different logo and colors and all that kind of stuff, so. All right. Ken had thought, since in the board packet, there was information about RSA member library staff, how long they worked. So he wanted us to take a moment to recognize member library staff members and how long they have worked. I had gotten a book for free from Amazon. We had got 2 copies, open wide, a cookbook for friends. If you are the longest, have the longest time that you worked and you're in this room, you get first choice of this. If you don't want it, then it'll be a free for all. So that's where we're going with that. So if you've worked at least 2 years in an RSA library, if you could stand up. What? If you have not worked more than 5 years, please sit down. If you've not worked more than 10 years, sit down. Yeah. And this would be for the same library because I have actually been around since 1991.
It could be any library. Just an RSA library, that's all we care.
So if you've worked more than 15 years, stay standing, everybody else,
15 years.
but not at my library.
Yeah, but you were at Blackhawk.
Doesn't matter.
That counts.
Well, I don't want to get my book back.
Ulterior motive.
You don't want to say library stuff. We appreciate that. If you've not been around for more than 20 years, please sit down. Right.
I think it's.
21 years down. 22. 23. 25. 27. 30.
How about we just ask them how long?
35.
Oh, we got, so between 30 and 34.
Okay, 34. 33. 32. Got it.
Hey.
Excellent. Would you like them?
You also get cake.
You also get cake.
Everybody gets cake.
All right.
Was that 32?
September 19th.
Let's keep going. We'll do the cake break after the cataloging update.
Okay, Erica, you want to do the cataloging update?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm hoping you can hear me okay. There was a cataloging department update in the packet. I thought I would just push the space bar. Okay. There was a cataloging department update in the packet, but I thought I would just touch on a few things from it. First thing, if there's any questions about anything in it. The things I wanted to point out, item cat 6 through 10. Bill workflows is becoming a crazy cat. I haven't seen this slide before this meeting. We aren't using those. You might have seen on the listserv, when we did the workflows upgrade in late March, that these additional item categories came with that workflows upgrade. We're not using them at this point. We may use them for special projects at some point. So they're going to populate as undefined when you catalog a new item. We're working with Cersei Dynex to batch edit all the existing items in the database to use undefined. Right now they're blank. And then the last thing I was going to mention is, we'll talk about this at the database committee meeting as well, but you don't need to worry about putting item cat 6 through 10 into the 949 tag if you load OCLC records into workflows. So we won't have to worry about making new additional fields for those, which is great. The second thing I wanted to touch on, pre-release items. We have had a couple cases where pre-release items started checking out and filling holds before the official release date. So just remember, if you put these items in workflows before the official release date, you need to check them out to either an on order or an internal user to prevent them from checking out and starting to fill holds before their official date. The last thing I wanted to mention, at the next database meeting, which will be our last database meeting next Friday morning, the 17th, we are going to propose starting to use homosaurus, which is a controlled vocabulary for subject and genre headings on LGBTQ+ topics. Using these headings would help supplement Library of Congress headings, making materials more discoverable in the online catalog to the LGBTQ+ community. So we'll talk more depth about this at the database meeting next Friday. I put the link for the meeting in the update. And if there's support for source from the database committee meeting, we'll take it to the RSA board for approval over the summer. Any questions about anything mentioned? You're probably thinking, let's just take a cake break. I fully agree. Okay, thank you.
Kendall, did you want to do item number 8 and 9? Did you know Rail's reminder about delivery and returning items?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Leave the cake.
One more push of the button. Cake on convenience. Okay, so Rails wanted me to remind all of you that if a patron has an item, they can return that to any library that's within basically Illinois, everybody who's got delivery. My point on that would be, if it's an RSA library, you might want to remind patrons, hey, it's fine if you drop this off at another library, but if you drop it off at a library that's not a member of RSA, like Bloomington, yeah, or Bloomington, the item won't be checked in and it could potentially go overdue or hit lost status while it's in transit back to the home library. So it's always best to try and get it to another RSA library. And it is okay, Rails specifically said it is okay to tell patrons that they can drop items off basically at any public library to get them back home. We have not, I think, really pushed this all that much. Some libraries tell their patrons, but in general, we hadn't pushed it a whole lot, but they're like, no, you should make sure patrons understand they can do this. So I'm like, okay. And then one other small thing, we tell you kind of a lot, but please check the codes before you do the delivery labels. Williamsfield, WF Field, well, W Field 230, that's a school. WLM Field PLD is a public. The school library is getting like 10 items per delivery that should go to the public library. Now, granted, the delivery codes are also one-off because the delivery codes are alphabetical and Williamsfield are right next door to each other, but please, 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 they are not the only ones. They're just the ones that contacted RSA this week asking how much it would cost to rename their library in RSA. Which is between like $2,000 and $4,000 for a small library. If you're a big library, it could be like $10,000. That 10-digit delivery or a 10-digit system code. Everything in the system and everything that touches the system and reports and history logs and third-party products, everything revolves around that code. So to change that code, you basically have to touch 18 years worth of system operations and history and rename it. And it is not cheap. So rather than them spending a lot of money, it would be best if we said, oh, look, it says W Field 230. Maybe I'll look that up on the cheat sheet we did. So please do that. I think they're not, again, they're not the only one. We talk about this probably every user's. So if you guys have ideas of what we could do to remind people to check the codes or to shame people or to, I don't know. We can't turn off delivery because that punishes your patrons and we don't ever want to do that. But, you know, we do have a bad boy list for things that get checked out wrong that go to the couple of union listers, although thankfully that list will be much shorter soon. So if you all have some ideas on what we could do to help people through happier means,
And,
label things correctly, that'd be great.
and in an ideal, yeah,
Just use our sticky notes instead.
exactly. That would solve all this problem.
It really would.
It would
Well,
make that.
I would love to, but Rails does not agree. Yes, Laura.
So, my suggestion was just what you mentioned a minute ago, some type of naughty list. That's what my head of circulation calls Patty's emails that she sends out kind of weekly.
That's what we call us too.
Yeah, and so the question is just like every Friday or if we're busy every Monday, we're like, did we get on Patty's naughty list? And it could be something similar. And it's kind of casual and yet it's a slightly public way of saying, come on, people, come on, pay attention.
The fun part of that is that there's multiple steps at that point for us to find out what happened and how it does. And typically what will happen is a lot of times they'll catch it. Well, not a lot of times. things get returned in delivery if they can't be read. Some of y'all have horrible handwriting. I'm just gonna flat out say it. Some of you,
Again, if we could just use our links.
but it's not Rails wide, which is why you can't. I know. That's a different conversation. It's not one I have any power about.
I think south is Joliet.
Nick,
Are you in contact, is anybody contacting the libraries that are making these mistakes all the time?
I believe, delivery does.
Okay.
But that's what I was trying to get at is maybe we need to do it too. Do you have a question? Oh, we do?
Okay.
If we hear about it, we do contact them.
I do know, I've seen emails. As the, at the library that I work at, I've seen emails that, or no. Sometimes he'll send out an email with a picture, say, hey, this was labeled wrong or whatever. So sometimes he does, he sends out, it's not his, but it's just direct stuff, whatever. He does not.
He asks if you see a mislabeled item, take a picture, make sure that. Send it to him.
Essentially, we want the patrons to get the items that they order as quickly as they can, and especially if it's going to a school over the summer, it's gonna sit in a bin over the summer.
And
Not helpful.
even during the school year, many of our schools only get delivered once a week. So if it gets in the bin, whatever day, they get it on Friday. They say, this is wrong, relabel these, it doesn't get picked up till the next one. That's a long.
Yep. All right, I'll get my soapbox, sorry. And then one last thing before cake time, reciprocal user profiles. So the RSIP A, JSR, student YA. We have a cleanup project with those going on now. Some of you have used them, many of you have not. Those are the ones that start off with RCIP. We specifically set up different types of reciprocal users back in 2007. When, as I mentioned, we had 98 libraries who were not automated, but the patrons from those libraries would use the automated libraries. And so we gave them a profile, RSIP, that was for an RSA member library who was not automated. And that would basically just said, hey, you've got full privileges in RSA. Mason Memorial is the only library whose patrons qualify to be RSIP patrons these days. And Mason Memorial is kind of slowly getting automated here. So when they get automated, those RSIP profiles will go away and we will go through and turn them all off everywhere. Non-resident, so NRES A, SR, YA, those are the ones for patrons who purchase cards. Those are the ones that when you register a patron, it creates a $999 bill, which hopefully reminds you to charge the patron whatever it costs to buy the card. That's the purpose of that $999 bill, which you can then forgive or cancel. Non-RSA, A, J, SR, YA, non-RSA are the standard non-RSA patron reciprocal cards. So those are the ones that are outside of RSA or like Canton Public Library. And then NP Bloom, those are for Bloomington patrons, and that's typically only issued by Normal Public Library and potentially Hudson and Towanda. But the Bloomington patrons, going back all the way to 2007, we worked out a special deal with Normal Public Library when Bloomington pulled out. Actually, this was before the system migration even. When Bloomington pulled out, Bloomington and Normal are 5 miles apart, and those patrons use each other like it's one library. And so we had to keep those patrons in the system. So we gave them their own user profile that gave them essentially full privileges at Normal Public Library and nowhere else. So you can check out anywhere else, but no holds, no stuff. Basically how that goes. So again, we have an RSIP cleanup going on. So if you get an email from us that says, hey, here, you've got a list of 26 patrons that are in, user profile RSIP, can you please check and make sure they're not Mason Memorial patrons? And if so, we can batch delete, or not batch delete, but batch modify those into either non-RSA or taxpayer card if we need. All right. Questions about that?
All right, we're gonna take a break.
For those of you online, about 10 minutes.
No, no, no. Well, this was. The 36. No, 30. We'll find sorry.
I didn't.
I was, I knew it was something that you would be, and I told me.
Sorry.
Well, I appreciate it today, because, you know, I mean, I totally.
I know.
It's like. They say this is one of the chairs on. Kind of their house. Like, we really need her. Grandma was awesome, but she started.
What we were gonna do with it.
Last night. Well, Mark, they can set out like.
I know exactly what it's like. I'm feeling like.
I know, you're familiar with it? You're familiar with it. Stop.
It's funny, I won't go into it.
So you get back down to the sheet, like.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
I see you upstairs. It's like, go back here. They want me to pay them.
Yeah.
But it's not tough.
So it's.
International, not national. You know, this is a brand new road, and we don't need to. You know, we didn't have to pay for it. We're just.
But I'm already. Not my account, so I.
For his son that he's done, oh.
I was like, change.
Yeah, sometimes we don't have it.
So.
Pretty small. Yeah.
Well, sometimes we'll add them, but we try to put out an engineering plan, so not let it sit there 5 years like when we paid for it.
Yeah.
But, you know, the previous, we can remember, then we'll just take it off.
Large truck looks like you barely bought like a year ago.
We didn't know, we didn't know. Yes, number one, they're so expensive. And number two, there's so many people that need them. It just absolutely run that out on Sunday because.
But you know.
I know you get about a places, but. I just have trouble. We get like maybe 8 or 10% gauge bail every month, and then we get 2 non-fiction from. What is it called?
Circulate.
We get 2 non-fiction from center points. And, you know, they're random, take those, and so that's the only non-fiction. that they buy. We don't buy any other large brands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, previous meeting, right, we got the book in. The Cindy here will tell you ahead of time what you're getting. And she is, we were getting it, my direct, she wouldn't order it from me. We do. I do it because we have people that refuse to read large print, and we have people that want large print. So if we get it in most, we'll just get it.
Yeah. It's good to know you're on the right track when you hear that from others. Yeah, no, everyone, but like, conversations with the black. We did in that large. Very popular title, meaningful title. There's only certain people that read literature at our library, and moving out western, it doesn't seem like they're gonna be able to come out like any more westerns, are they? I mean, not that they. I should be.
Very changes in.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, I don't know how much money I'm gonna spend and how good are these stories? The same people are reading it.
We never read the Western. A lot of, well, half of our Western books. But they still should have been paid. They did, they. Now the market paper, you know. Yeah, well, I don't know, I don't think one check goes to them, we're gonna go to the library. I mean, some of them really fun space.
Build it online for replacement loss and things like that in your, like separate. Just like books, and you just kind of know how much.
I don't have a large.
Right.
We don't, we put audio books too. Well, that's what we was.
Take your plate.
We said the library. You know, I can. Nobody has TV.
Was it blue light special?
I think so. Yes.
Good job on it, David. Got more hamburgers.
Bigger place on Sunday. And that was bad. It was like, love that. Big cakes in town is so like, you guys want to.
I just got trust. I don't like that.
Right
I have no idea what kind of stuff is right. I don't think. Well.
Yeah, I went straight with things. I got one of legs. There you go. I mean, it's. This is a possible case. And what is taking a bathroom? Why are you shivering like that?
The last Oscar pick I had was so bad.
This is really bothering. me. So I really like this really much better. I can see.
And I think I have.
So I'm so glad to see that.
I do too. I have picture OCD, like pictures not being,
So. It's really fun. It's supposed to die, but see, we can out see everything. So. Don't see have ours.
But I've never seen. Yeah, cause
Well, we use spot right now. Well. Yeah.
Okay.
Spot.
And I got this room, and then I saw a smaller one, but it's pretty small. I don't know if they have one of these. Maybe if we do, like the director's day, where there's more of a consolidated schedule.
Like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's a nice space. That's for sure.
And also, I think it's like I say.
Okay, yes.
So, something on a slide that you passed, when you were talking about items can be returned at any RSA library. Is there, it's still true that certain libraries can put, caveats, you know, for very special board games, reverse kids. Caveat, this can only be returned at this library.
Yeah, you can tell me. That's your call. I think the idea was that, yeah, it's okay to tell patrons you've got books dropping off on your way home from it's essential. But if you've got special things that you want.
It's like, like the library thing.
Yeah, like these.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so you could check something out, like even like I had a site that said, hey, you can return books to the
Okay.
library, but when you give them anything you want to return to you, I would make a point of say, please.
Okay. I wanted to clarify, like, something I might have produced, so you can see the screen and say, oh my gosh.
Maybe.
Okay, we're gonna start back up.
You know, did everybody get cake?
There's more back there, you can always go back. All right, we're gonna start on number 10.
Did you start us online?
Did everything.
We are recording, we never stop, we're gonna have 10 minutes at that time on a recording.
All right,
You can enjoy the general.
so next on the agenda is operations department. Anthony,
And before Anthony goes, I just want to mention, even though we do have a library police badge, we're not. the libraries. Now, listen, I know. Back in era 3 and era 2,
Do you want this recorded?
that's fun. Sometimes there was a little too much bad cop and not enough good cop. We're pretty much trying to be good cop. Nowadays, we have been trying to be good cop for quite some time. Because if you're bad cop too much, then we get things like, oh, I don't know, 20 libraries going fine free and not telling us. So what we are trying to, the point we're trying to say here is we want to help the system work for you, not against you. If you check something in and it's got a fine and you're a fine-free library, don't ignore it. Don't waive the fine. Don't forgive the fine. Call us and we'll fix it. Right? We also do deconflicting of intra-library spats. So, you know, you're kind of mad at so-and-so for such and such, or, you know, you run a thing on your item and find out it's been checked out for a year and a half. The due date is 2026, and, you know, you politely ask the library to return it, and they don't call us.
Who's the chief mediator?
There are days when we love doing that. So there you go. Gentle nudges. That's what we aspire to. It's the gentle nudge to do things right. And the occasional bad boy when stuff's right. Okay, so we're here to help. But only one, and it's on the giraffe. So the giraffe's on the picture. So there you
Maybe I want the giraffe.
go. What's that?
Maybe I want the giraffe.
Stay away from my giraffe.
Okay, so now I've got to follow a giraffe and sugar.
I'm trying not to heckle you too much.
Thank you. So, yeah, in the operations department update, I spoke about the documentation index because version 2.0 hit the support website. If you go to the support website, support.librariesofrsa.org, and pull down the little menu at the top for handbooks, go to documentation index, it's right there.
See that screen.
Oh,
What?
You'll see that in Zoom shortly.
There it is.
Okay. Thank you, Vanna. Okay, so the new version includes a bunch more documents, about 25 new documents. It also includes links directly to more than 40 videos. Version 2 also the work to put this documentation together also kind of informed a bit of a redesign of the support site, so that the support site and the documentation index kind of reflect each other. But ultimately, the documentation index is basically an easy way for you to find a document that might help you work a problem that you've got in workflows. That's ostensibly the main point of it. So you can download this PDF. The PDF is searchable and every single link in it is clickable. The top level of documents in there are, you'll see that there's like an orange bar, and that's the handbooks. And if you click on the title in the orange bar, that takes you directly to the cataloging handbook or the circulation handbook or the director's handbook. Underneath that, hierarchically, there's some blue bars, and those are the big sort of topics. And on the website, there is another pull-down menu called topics, and those topics are reflected in the index. And then the green bars are the pages which are kind of sub-pages. They belong sort of underneath the blue pages. And so the idea is then that you can just, do a quick search, Control F in Acrobat for keywords in the title. And then you can click on that and it will take you directly to the document that you need. Now that version 2 is finished, this documentation index is just going to be updated at the website every time we put new documents into the support site. So should the users group adopt the policy changes that are going to happen in a few minutes on the agenda, those new policies will be uploaded to the website and they'll be reflected in the index, and a new version of the index will be just added to the website as needed. Yeah, so if there are any questions about that, the only thing to be aware of is it does say on every page of the documentation the last date that it was updated. So if you were using, the May 1st edition, and you see on the website, oh, there's now like a May 15th edition, you're probably gonna want to download the new one and get rid of the old one. Okay. Were there any questions?
What about Sarah?
Yep.
So we've gone over 2 additional policies and we haven't made any major changes. We've just done some basic updates. The first one is the fine block limit policy update. Are those on here, Kendall?
Yes.
Okay. So the main change that we made to this was, putting in some information about the 5, 10, 15, and 20. The original one did not have that. And then we put in some information in the top paragraph there just to make it a little bit more, expansive. And that was pretty much all we did to that specific policy. Okay, so do we need, I guess we need a motion for that, right?
I move.
Okay, so Alyssa moves, do we have a second? Second. Okay, Jenny, the second. Does anybody have any questions before we? Okay, so I guess.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Anyone opposed?
Tony's watching it for me. All right, so that is approved. I don't think I need to. Okay, and the second one that we went over was the reciprocity policy. And for this one, we basically just extended out some of the language in here. Specifically put in information about being considerate when using or borrowing items from other libraries, like not overriding renewal limits, not extending due dates, and that you need to be considerate when borrowing items from another library. And it's best to call and ask permission, you know, if you're gonna have to do something different. Like if you're sending it to a school, you really don't want the school to check it out for 6 months, especially if it's not your item. Does anybody have any questions about this policy? Okay.
All right, we need a motion to approve. Motion. Linda. Thank you. Second.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good job.
Just like that. Invitation index is out of date.
Yep.
Having all of the documentation.
So yeah, if you've just downloaded the documentation index, wait until tomorrow and download it again. Operations manual updates again. I included an update, a written update in the packet on the operations manual. This is the operations manual, for those of you who don't know, is a product that Kendall has wanted for some time. And so he tasked me with recruiting a group of staff and directors from RSA member libraries to help me build this operations manual. And our kind of remit is that the manual should be basically a document to help frontline staff, kind of a single point of information for frontline staff to be able to use to understand how RSA works. There is a description of the difference between RSA and Rails in there, so that we're reiterating that again and again and again. There's information on very, very basic information to start with on like what is workflows, what is BCA. We're going through and just being very kind of explicit about the various kinds of terminology that are used within RSA, within workflows, so that you can provide that to frontline staff to give them, give them a context of how what they do fits into the wider picture of RSA's operations and the operations in each individual member library. I also, I'm not going to list names now because I will forget somebody and I will upset somebody. But in the written report that I provided on the operations manual, I included a list of the volunteers, the working group who've been invaluable in getting this project off the ground. I absolutely could not have done it without their help. And so when that guide, when that manual comes out, it's in very large part down to the feedback and information and creative suggestions that I've received from the working group. The plan right now is to have kind of a public beta version of the operations manual ready for everybody early in July. That public beta version, the reason I'm calling it that is because I don't expect it to be a fully finished product. The idea being that we're going to put it out to the membership and then we're going to get lots and lots of feedback. People are going to say, oh, you've left something out that would be really useful. You've made a mistake. There's something here that you could add for clarity. And we're going to actively encourage the membership to feedback to us on that operations manual. And then the working group will meet 1 or 2 or 3 more times to work through all that suggestions and recommendations. And then we'll put out the final version sometime, I would imagine in late summer, early fall. That's the plan on that. Any questions about the operations manual? Okay, well, it's still me then, so you're going to get sick of me talking this afternoon. The next bit is parameters party plus. Now I was explaining what we're trying to do for this to my wife, and she said, "You're a Gen Xer. You were around in the 90s. Why didn't you call it parameters palooza?" So the parameters party plus, what we're going to do is we're going to be reaching out, at least in the first phase of this project, to all the public library members of RSA, all 96 of you. And we're going to sit down with you either in person or more likely by Zoom and kind of interview a point of contact at each of those public libraries. And the interview is basically designed to figure out what you think the system should be doing for you, what your circulation rules are, because maybe your circulation rules have changed and we don't know that. And so you're having to do workarounds all the time. Maybe you went fine free and you didn't tell us. And so you're doing fine free discharges all the time, or you're manually forgiving fines. We're also going to use this, and the reason it's parameters party plus is because we're also going to use it to gather data on your institution, like what your hours are. Because if we don't know what your hours are, that can't get fed into RSA CAP properly, and so your public can't see those public facing hours listed in the most obvious place. And there are plenty of libraries, we don't actually know what their current hours are. Those interviews, we anticipate are going to be about an hour long. The way we're going to roll this out is that we're going to start with the Eastern region, and we're going to contact the 20 public libraries in the Eastern region first. We're going to email them all, and we're going to ask them to make an appointment using Microsoft Bookings, as long as it doesn't crap out on me again. So what we'll do is we'll email each of the directors at those 20 libraries in the Eastern region and invite them to make an appointment. On the back end, Sarah, Tony and Patty will have done preparatory research so that they know what we think we know about your library before the interview. So that they've got a sense of what the system knows, what information we're missing, what information we think might be out of date. And then they're going to start asking you questions like, what is your CERT rule? And they're not going to tell you what we think it is, because we want you to tell us what you think it is, because then it's our job to make workflows reflect that, rather than a sort of second guessing it. The team has started doing the research because we knew that we would need a lot of lead time to get that research done. Sarah completed the research on one of the libraries the other day. She reckoned it took about 2 hours. And obviously we've got 96 of them. So it's going to be a big project. So they're going to use the rest of May and June to kind of work ahead on the research. And then the email to invite you to sign up for these interviews is going to come out to you at the end of June, so that you can sign up for interviews in July. That's the schedule for the Eastern group, will be to sign up for those interviews in July. And then I'll move on to, we're going to do it clockwise around the map. So we'll move on to Southern in the next month in August. And we'll keep going until hopefully we finish Central around Thanksgiving. That's an ambitious time frame, and we might not make it. And we'll let you know if we're slipping behind, because this is a lot of work. It's about 2 hours of research. The interview we expect to be an hour, and then depending on how different you think your operations are from what we think they are, there's going to be quite a lot of work to do on the back end as well. And just so you know, so I don't have to be bad cop later, we're kind of considering these mandatory. Because
We're not kind of considering them, they are mandatory.
Because clearly we don't want to be in a situation going forwards where I think it's 18 of our libraries went fine free and didn't tell us. And that's not a criticism of them. We need to be present and demonstrate what we can do and remind member libraries that we're here for you, right? And so the reason this is a mandatory process is so we can make good the sort of gap in knowledge that we have about our member libraries. And then it'll be much easier to keep up as time goes on. That was a lot of me talking, and I don't know if there's much cake left, and it says cake optional there. So did anyone have any questions about that? Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking that this would be a good time to kind of analyze what we're doing and seeing if we align with other libraries. And I don't want to throw you off and have our discussion, and then 2 weeks later say, well, I took it to the board since everybody else is doing 3-week checkouts, we're going to switch it again. Is there something that you can put out that kind of says what the standard is, or am I just gonna be annoying?
So I think one of the things that's going to come out, I haven't started writing it yet, and it came out of my discussion with Tony, Sarah and Patty the other day, was we're going to give you a heads up on the questions we're going to be asking. Again, we're not going to tell you what we know because we don't want to, we don't want to spoil the conversation. We want to know, because what we think we know is less important than actually what is happening. But we'll send out a summary of what the questions will be. And you'll see, when you get the list of 54 questions, you'll see, there's a lot of information there that we're looking to gather. As to standards, because of local control, right? Every board makes their own decisions based on their own, and there are some things that are RSA recommendations, like if you go fine free, 14 or 21 day go lost is a recommendation from us, so that you can try and get your materials back. But everything else is just kind of recommendations, because you all do what you do, and your own boards have. My experience from my former board, trying to get them to go fine free at the same time as our other consortium members, and we were a small consortium, was very difficult, and they wanted a 28-day go loss, which was way too long, but that's what they insisted on. That was the price I had to pay to go fine free. So
I guess I'm just kind of thinking, like, it'd be great to have sort of a summary report that kind of says, like, this many public libraries choose a 2-week checkout, this many public libraries choose 3-week checkout, or something like that, so that you can see if you're like an outlier and you really need to kind of make some changes.
We could look at, see if we can put something like that together.
Yeah.
But let's say we do our interview with you on Tuesday and your board on Thursday says we're changing all our cert rules.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just call us and tell us what they are, and we'll update the system.
Yeah.
That's where the reason why we don't want to give you a lot of information up front is because we want to know how you are currently operating, which is far more important than how the system thinks you're operating. And again, we've had a lot of staff turnover. We have not been out in your libraries due to COVID, and things have changed over the years. And if you've got a director that hasn't been around for a long time, they may not even know they need to tell us. And they're just like, oh, the system doesn't do what we want.
There's a lot of times also why we're doing this. When I contact you about what your circulation map will be condensed to, or your whole map, we'll also look to see what item type you're using, because you might have 3 or 4 item types that you no longer use. There's a couple of years ago that said no holds. Still in the hold map, and you've never contacted us. But because they said no holds, your patrons now cannot place holds on those. And you don't no longer use that item. So we need to get rid of them for your patrons now to place holds on.
Yeah.
Even though you no longer have them, but they want to place a hold on that.
So after this interview and after we do this, will you give us documentation then back so that we have like something, a neat, pretty sheet that we can share with?
So we can absolutely, I say this will probably fall on me to do a sort of executive summary of what we've learned. So we can say, okay, well, 66% of our publics are fine free or whatever.
But I'm thinking customized for your library. So like, when we did our library things, we've kind of done it piecemeal. So we've thrown in different things along the way and we've made some changes, but it could be that I'm thinking that we're one way and maybe we should be a different, because there's more options now. There's more locations or cat 5s or 4s that we use now that we did when we first started it. So it might give us an opportunity to kind of decide what we want to do. And then if we could have like a pretty sheet.
This is not, honestly, this is not everything, because we're not doing the side of this.
Okay.
To be honest with you, this is gonna be more of a circulation, your item type, you know, your circ map, your hold map, your user profile, things like that. So we're not gonna get into the cataloging part, so we're not gonna do, you know, those kind of things like that. So we're gonna do ours.
Okay.
Service. Those drop down kind of menus on our side. So maybe your payment types, things like that. So we're not gonna do the cataloging part of it.
Like there is a copy of the circ map on the parameters page, the whole map's on the parameters page. We'll see what we can, if we can put together something like post meeting, like, here's everything we discussed, here's a couple of things.
Like you're coming to my library or is it a phone call?
Okay, so the way it's gonna work is that,
Because if you call me and ask me how the system works, I don't check books. I don't.
no. So the plan is that for some libraries, right? The director is the person who does everything, right? Because many of our libraries, the director is the only person there. So anything they don't know isn't worth knowing, right? However, with the bigger libraries, the plan is that the director would designate a point of contact for the parameters party.
Or two, if you need multiple.
Yeah, or multiples. And the Microsoft bookings would be used to set up a virtual appointment. Now, in some cases, we might go visit.
I'm very clear.
Yes. We would still use the Microsoft bookings to make the appointment so that we can make sure that we're not missing anybody, but there is the possibility that we could hit the road for some of them. Somewhat based on locality, but also just based on, is there a need to actually talk this over in person? And in fact, the first one that's going to happen, Patty's going to do a practice one when she's already planning to visit a library, so that we can learn what she learns from the process from that practice one.
But you're not coming our way. You're starting in the east and you're moving.
Yeah, we're starting to the east. That was an arbitrary decision. I had to come up with a plan, and so I picked east because I figured that way we can go clockwise. And I like clockwise better than counterclockwise, because that's how my brain works. Clockwise is nicer than counterclockwise.
So, are you wanting to run items that are missing things from those categories? Is that something you could do from Blue Cloud? For like what you were referring?
No, I'm just like, some things we've set up so long ago.
That might be new codes?
Right, every once in a while, I need like a refresher on how often we send out overdue notice. I think we had a refresher
that's-
about 5 years ago, but it's my.
That's on the list.
Yeah, so,
Things like that.
and you'll forgive me, the summary of what we're going to be asking you isn't ready yet.
Okay.
That is coming. You'll probably get that in about, I would say, in about a week. The questionnaire that we're going to use was only finalized yesterday. And so, you know, we're trying to build this as quickly as we can. So you'll probably see that summary of what you're going to be asked within the next week or so. And then if there's something you think we're missing, let us know, and we can consider it against the remit of this particular project. But also, if it's a question that doesn't fall into that, but it's something that needs attention, then we'll make sure that's directed properly.
But like in our library things, some things circulate to any card holders, some things circulate only to adult card holders at LME. Some things are foldable, some things are not. I mean, there's like 4 different weirdness things in our library things because we have so many different.
Right, yeah.
But I want to make sure that I know which ones are. Good.
Yes,
Like,
we don't
we
know.
piecemeal that.
Yeah.
It also falls with what we've been working on with our user cleanup. You know, so we have a lot, you know, it falls with that. This way we can also clean up the user profile. We could also say, hey, you know what, maybe we haven't heard you with your expired patrons, you know, like here's the list of.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, we're able to clean up a lot of things and maybe you have your drop down menu. You know, these are the mandatory ones. These are ones you're really only using now. Let's just clean up a lot of things and speak for Erica, but maybe this is something now that they might do next year or the year after. I don't know for the catalog.
I will
You know.
say for cataloging, we are doing cataloging site visits.
Yeah.
And we do touch on cataloging parameters and cleanup reports, so we aren't calling them parties, we're calling them. But it's a more boring term, but. If you're interested in one of those cataloging site visits, you can submit the form on our website, or you can just call us and tell us you'd like a visit. So we are trying to help with the cataloging piece. And I admit, mostly we're just cold calling some of you and saying, hey, can we come over and, you know, talk about some cataloging hot topics? But again, if you're interested in this, we can certainly visit you, just let us know.
Hey, once you had our party, then you can get all the catalog and say, you just had the rating. Contact with everything.
So the word party is clearly false advertising. But I do like the alliteration.
One other thing to think about, best
Party hats and.
best question about, well, we've got some things that are local and some things that are not local and some things we don't do holds on. You should know what those things are. And you can tell us, and then we'll go. That's not what we think, right? But what we think could be 15 years and 4 directors ago. Which is why we're not telling you up front. These are the CERC rules that you have in our system, because we don't want to poison that well, right? So if you know you've got things, I want these things to go out for this amount of time, these things to go out for this amount of time. Those are the questions we're going to ask, and then we're going to look and go, we have some fixing to do. And oh, by the way, you didn't mention this thing, but it's in your CERC map. Do you still have these? Do you circulate them? How do you circulate them? That kind of thing. So.
Video cassettes.
There are libraries with VHS. I got 3 of them.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not very big. They were.
or video records that are actually Blu-rays.
And please don't tell us it's my home location.
Okay, so were there any other questions? As I say, by the time I get the summary of questions out to you all, by all means, let us know if you think we're missing something. If you don't know what we're talking about, which is fine, we can provide clarity. If we know what we're talking about, assuming, and yeah, let us know if there's anything we're missing. And you know, we can adapt it. And as I say, that should be out to you within about a week. Okay. All right, and then the support site, 10.5, Kendall's description there of it as the single source of RSA truth.
We're working very hard to make it the one place that has everything, i.e. the documentation index, the ops manuals, right? Just those 2 things alone. If you walk into a library with no director and they hire somebody, we can say, here's all the policies, here's your day-to-day. Let us know, you know, we'll schedule a meeting a week from now, but here's enough to get you going. But the website should be the place that has all the answers. That's what we're trying to make it.
And I was going to say, I don't want to put him on the spot, but I'm going to put Tony on the spot and just Tony wave at everybody. Tony is the architect, the builder, the designer, the maintainer of the support site, and it's the work that we did on the documentation index. I should have kept track and I didn't, but it led to literally hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of edits to the support site. which Tony has done with cheerfulness and grace, or at least that's how he presented. If he was less cheerful and less gracious about it, he certainly didn't let on. It's a testament to his hard work that it's as fabulous and useful as it is. And you should rely on it, right? You can rely on us too, but you should rely on it. Yeah.
Maybe a single sort of truth, but also things that's not going over it. We've gotten rid of so many outdated things. Outdated, so many outdated things. You really can't, like, you really can't. You can, what's, applies to RSA, like this.
Yeah, indeed.
And the old support site is still there. If you click on an old link, I have uglified it as much as I could uglify it to remind you that it is no longer anything you want to use. I've taken lots of stuff out of there. There's a big link right on the top to take you to the actual support site. If you type alsrsa.org, rsanfp.org, rsanfp.com, all of those will redirect you to the new support site. Or you can just type support libraries of rsa.org, it will take you there. So please, if you have a bookmark to this site, go to it, click on the new support site link, and then bookmark that, and then go there in the future. Because the old site is slowly being dismantled and is useless at this point in time for you. I just can't automatically make it redirect to the new website, so.
Yeah, and if you're used to looking for support documentation on the old support site, you won't find it anymore. There's no way to search for it. We took the search function down. And so if that's what you're used to, then the documentation index is your friend, because it provides a one-stop shop for everything, for all 275 documents that RSA staff have written to help you navigate.
The current version, it's not 10 old versions, the current. Yes, ma'am.
When you update the RSA governments page where it talks about the RSA board, will you put, like right now, the only place I could find the regional map was under the Independence Project?
Yep, that's all gonna get on or about the last week of June. We have a lot of work to do to get ready for the cut over to the new one. Users group page will be archived, the old board page will be archived, a new membership list, the new maps. We have to put the budget up there because that has to be public now. So we've got a lot, we have to recreate the governance section of the website. Yeah.
And once that's finished, the new bylaws, the IGA, the regions map, all of those new documents will be in the documentation index as well.
Okay, because I was like, wait a minute, who's in that group? It was, I knew where to go to find it. It was easier to find in the old website, but I was like, when is this gonna be a part of like?
And we're taking, like, if you go to the Rails site or any of the other organizations like us, you click on about and there's a board page there. You click on about, there'll be a board page. So that's how we'll go.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the only person thinking this, but thank you everyone in RSA for taking the time to work on this stuff now and not kind of waiting and then reacting and realizing this needs done. It's a lot of work to put into it. It's reassuring to know there's a place people can go for the most accurate.
It's again, it's one of these things that has been on my to-do list for a long time, but my to-do list and my hours are not commensurate. And so Anthony has done just massive amounts of work getting a lot of this stuff up and running, and then his team has done a lot of work to get it implemented or to write new documentation with. The thing we found with the documentation index was, oh my God, we haven't touched this document in 15 years. Maybe we should do something about that, right? So that's why we have all those last modified dates so that we know, oh goodness, this needs work on. So we're this new era, we're trying to reinvigorate and make up for the fact that there's so much new blood in RSA that we have to be the ones that tells everybody.
Okay, it's not me anymore. Were there any questions about the support site? Well, thanks. Okay.
Now it's back to me. My throat's getting a little froggy, so hopefully we'll be done soon. Staff anniversaries, Erica has worked with us for 15, she's put up with me for 15 years. Aaron's only had to put up with me for 2 years, but still, that's a pretty good. As far as staff departures go, Doug King left RSA at the end of February, which means we no longer have somebody who's full-time working on reports. So if you have reports questions, if it's something that is a report that's fairly easy to run, the member services operations team will take care of that for you. Potentially James will take care of it for you. It just depends on what report is the best to do. If you send a report request for something very esoteric that has to be created and written, that comes to me and goes on my to-do list. And I do try and work through those things. It just takes a little bit of time, especially when it's something that's a good request, but there's a lot of thought on how to make it even slightly useful in the manner that we can get you the information, like, oh, I don't know, the checkouts of nonfiction materials in my library for the last 2 years. Okay, great, I can do that. Oh, no, wait, you don't have your stuff cataloged with fiction or nonfiction in item cat 1. So now how do we figure out what is fiction and not for your library or whatever, right? So sometimes there's a lot of back and forth, but again, we are working through and trying to get those things done for you as quickly as we can. We are not going to fill this position right now. With the staffing transition that's coming up, there are a lot of new duties that are going to be added in when HR, payroll, administration, all the stuff that Rails currently does for us, we have to do ourselves. And so rather than fill this position and then have to make bad decisions a year from now, we're just going to leave it open and see what we need and hire for that. So we've just spread those duties out among staff. And just another reminder, if you're buying hardware, if you're buying software that needs to talk to our system, please tell us before you buy it. I don't want to say salesman will tell you anything. I'm not going to say salesman will tell you anything, but things that work great on a single person system do not work well in consortia systems sometimes, just because of how consortia are all different, right? So if you have one library, you can be assured it'll probably work with your one library. But as soon as you have 2 libraries or more, and those 2 libraries don't operate exactly the same, things start to get complicated. And we've got 140 libraries all operating differently. And so we need to have talks sometimes with like their IT people to find out, well, what do you expect from us? How are you blocking patrons from other libraries from getting to your stuff, right? Maybe you don't want that. And they're like, why would we want to do that? Well, because, for example, Fond du Lac, well, thank you. I was thinking Friedel, but I know it wasn't Friedel. Fond du Lac's Hoopla was open for anybody in RSA for 2 years, something like that, because the Hoopla people made a slight mistake.
I set up documents. I can prove it was their error.
Yeah.
They gave me my $16,000 back.
Yeah, so $16,000 worth of non-Fond du Lac checkouts.
And then I
Because
sent everybody an email saying, if your patrons are mad,
sorry, yeah.
sorry.
So now we did get this fixed after this happened. Then we contacted Hoopla support and said, hey, we've got like 30 libraries in RSA. Can we get them all set up correctly so that this doesn't happen to anybody else? And they're like, oh, sure, right? Great, thanks for talking to us. It would have been better if you'd done that 2 years ago. So, so please just call us. And especially if you're purchasing something and it's like your setup date is tomorrow and we don't know anything about it, your setup date's gonna get pushed. Because if it's working with our system and talking to our system, there's at least 3 days worth of setup that we have to do that takes it overnight. We set up a piece, then there's an overnight process. We set up the next piece, there's an overnight process. Then the next day, maybe that thing will work, the connector to your new product. So we need to know ahead of time. Worst, even if it's something that everybody has, like Hoopla, right? Oh, hey, we're setting up Hoopla. Great. But give us a couple of days so that we can make sure everything's ready before they start setting them up. And I'll just keep saying this. I said it in the last one meeting. I said it a year ago. I've said it 2 years. I'm just going to keep telling all this until that actually happens. Richard, thank you. Richard emailed me this morning with a product I've never heard of. Hey, can this connect to the system? I don't know. I've never heard of that product. But other libraries are using it, and those libraries are not connected into our system, so I think you're good. So, all right. We talked at the beginning about email groups. In the packet, you saw there was a listing of those email groups on the RSA website, and you can start signing up now. On the support site, under Get in Touch, there is a form that says RSA email group sign up. There's some stuff to read. And then I want to know your name. I want to know the email that you want to get the emails from the groups at, and your phone number, just in case we need to call you. What position most accurately fits your duties? And somebody suggested librarian, but you would all pick that, and then I wouldn't know who was a director or not. What region you are in, you have to pick your region before you can pick your library. There's a link to the region's map. I did this on purpose because eventually you all need to know what region you're in, so may as well just bite the bullet and learn that. And then at the bottom is a very long list. See if I can get them all in here. Oh, I can get them all in here. 22 of them, plus the everybody all list. We are replacing the MailChimp listserv with the new listserv, hopefully by the end of June, no later than. So basically how this works is you go on here, you pick which ones you want to be on. If you come back later and go, oh, I wanted to be on a different list, you can just ask to be added to that list. If you're on a list and you're like, man, this isn't really helping me, you can unsubscribe from most of the lists. You cannot unsubscribe from your regional list if you're a director. You cannot unsubscribe from the RSA announcements list if you're anyone. If you are anyone, we would need to be able to tell you that the system is down. So the RSA announcements list, we will use it somewhat less, but it's still very important. So please sign up for these. The ADML group has, I don't know, maybe 60 people have signed up already. So we're going to be able to phase that ADML listserv out. That ADML listserv had 180 people, and I bet 90 of them retired 10 years or more ago. I was just reading through it. It's like, this is all the old people saying. Yeah.
I set up in
2008. Yeah, that's an old list. And now you can only sign somebody up for that if they have a Gmail account. That's the new thing Google Groups is doing. So we picked a good time to get rid of it. All right. In July, we were going to be making some changes to RSA CAT. We're going to be turning on the online bill pay for everybody. But we have some new carousels. They're a little better. We can have multiple carousels on your main page instead of just one. Each carousel can have multiple ones inside of it. So you might have a new materials ones that has books and movies and music. You don't have new music, we can get rid of it. If you have something else that you wanted to be new, we can add that. You can break it out by children's. You can have several of the New York Times bestsellers. This particular one has all of them listed, but you don't want that many. Makes it too messy. But you can pick a couple. But more importantly, if you guys have like a librarian recommended list, essentially all you need to do is go into RSA CAT, log in so that you can create a list. And then you add titles to your list, and then you say, here's the link to my list, and then we can turn that into a carousel. So You know, if you want to have a page that's got like summer reading or Valentine's Day reading or
Like fiction,
what's that?
psychological fiction.
Psychological fiction.
The story.
We could turn that into a list. So amongst all of the things Tony will be doing over the summer, this will be one. So eventually you'll get an email about this. He's over there smiling, but I don't think he actually means it. Just kind of an idea of how it might look. This is the old Peoria Notre Dame site, and we just added the new materials lists, the kids list, a couple of New York Times lists, although I need to rename one of these, so it's only one line. And then a stat picks list, which is, again, somebody just went in and added some items to a listing in RSA CAP, and we turned that saved person's list into a widget. And then you see something you like and you click on it and it opens right up. So there you go. So that is it.
The
Yeah.
current list, do they have to be by title or can they be by like cat 5, cat?
Yeah, so if you go into RSA CAP, any of the facets that you can facet down to whatever you want to see. The link up at the top, we turn that into a list.
Okay.
I'm
Facet.
99% sure. Make a list, if it doesn't work, that's the one. But we don't like the 1%, so there you go. Yes, question.
Like if someone creates a Rebecca Cottle book list, then lots of people could use that on their, as far as they can.
So if you had a list and you created it. I think that the issue there is going to be who owns them, right? So you would want to be logged in under the, I can show you. If you were on a site and you did a search,
Nope, no.
I got it again. It's my favorite search, other than just my butt cracking. Right, okay, so there's my Dogman search. If you go into the all RSA libraries and you make your list from there, that's probably better than making it your local library if you wanted to share it. If you want to just be for your local library, then you should do it. Well, if you want all of those books to be yours, then you would do it from the link that's limited to your stuff. There'll be more information coming out. That's about the end of my stuff.
Okay.
My voice is gone.
All right, are there any other business discussions, or business or discussions that we want to talk about now? I do want to mention one, I did bring some posters for our 5K that's coming up next month. It does start at the library, but it's for St. Jude. So if you're a close library to Princeville, if you could display it in your display area, we really appreciate it. And come run if you're running. Or walking. We'd love your money. Is there anything else anybody wants to?
More cake.
Yeah. So there's also on the table there, there's the document that we created with Rails to, again, explain the differences between RSA and Rails. It's a handy dandy, like 2-column thing, so you can see it's the things that Rails does, here's the things that RSA does, and they're different. There's also some posters about key reads that Anna Bean from Rails gave to us, which you can help yourself to. And then the remaining bits of RSA NFP swag. All the USB sticks have gone, they've already been snagged, but there's some other bits of RSA NFP swag that you should help yourselves to, so that the new RSA doesn't have to inherit it.
Yes, Laura.
1 week from today, in person at the Dunlap Public Library, I'm gonna be giving a historical presentation, so if you wanna come see an interesting presentation, see me dress up in a funny dress. Just come on over to the Dunlap Public Library 1 week from today.
Laura's presentations are off the chart.
I just want to say quick, thank you so much to everybody for your support as we transition to this building. Thank you, RSA, for helping us figure out how to be closed and reopen it and you know, and all of that. And all of that, and then thank you for surrounding libraries. We sent all of our patrons to other libraries in the area, Lisa and Jamie, and I don't know who else is here. We heard really positive things from our patrons, and they had really great experiences. They wanted to. So thank you for.
Thank you for hosting us.
Give a lovely night.
Eat more cake.
All right, and it is 3 o'clock. So we did a really good job with the timetable here. Thanks, everybody, for keeping us on track, and we can see you around, I guess. Not as usual.
Let's get the plan.